This meeting will be video recorded and broadcast over local access channel 8 and through the town website at www.eastham-mass.gov. And I will call the meeting to order on our clock, 6:32. And this is the Human Services Advisory Committee on November 20th, 2024. So I wasn't looking at my email in the last half an hour. As I was saying, I was texting with my son who's out of power. And
At least
he lives in Seattle. And
up there, you're getting. Yeah.
So yeah, he's safe and there's no damage to their home, but I did not check to see if there was any minutes from
Yeah, there were.
police.
Yeah.
So I haven't had a chance to read them or print them for anybody.
I didn't read them.
So if we just want to take one quick minute and then we don't have anybody coming in till about 7:15, because tonight we only have one agency. So, oh yeah, I mean, it was such good news from both our agencies last week. I mean, the fact that there was just so many more people needing it. All right.
Do you have to put down that the minutes were a motion to approve and seconded? Because it says reviewed and accepted.
Yeah,
which is fine.
it does say it. Yeah, and I think that's all we need to have in there. And because the minutes are posted on the website. Or on. Yeah, on our little section of the town website.
Yeah, that should be it.
All right. Give you all another minute or so. Here, wait in the background. Maybe I think Stephanie.
Yeah.
Anybody is ready.
Seems good to me.
Yeah, okay. I will entertain a motion about them.
I move that we accept the Eastham Human Services Advisory Committee meeting minutes from November 13th.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Right. Any discussion about the minutes? Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
Right, any
Abstain.
and we have one abstention. Hilda's abstaining because of her absence. And I don't mean to, I didn't mean that. It was just because she wasn't here last week.
No editorial comment.
No, at all. Because then she was with us the next day, so, you know, she
Came in strong.
Oh, yeah.
She put a time in. Okay, so the minutes have been accepted as presented to us. Thank you, Felice. And so now we go on to, before we get Lysetta from Independence House, which is just, that application is just so hard to go through.
I turned on Charlie Brown Christmas while I was reading.
A few things like units of whatever, I think, but you know.
Oh, yes, yes, yeah, there was a lot in that, yes,
That's
but
an incredible grant application.
it is, and the graphics at the end they're all terrific, because you can, you know, really visualize, but it's still
Heartbreaking.
heartbreaking, is right. So the meeting that we had last Thursday at the town hall. First, there was, hard to park and whatever, because they had other meetings going on. But, there were, it was Orleans, Brewster, Denison, Eastham of the towns that had been invited. There were, those were the towns that ended up being represented. And the information that we sent you, the lovely, it was like great to get it all written down, because I was meaning to type it all out myself, and it was like, oh, good.
One less job.
Cause it
Okay.
was the kind of thing that we took, the three of us were taking notes while people were talking. And, Brewster, I mean, there was just one person there from Brewster, but, they have their 8 members on their committee, and I think they have one more. I think they have 9 and such, and they meet every month as opposed to every week. But once they get their grants, they do finish their work on the grants more or less by the end of March. But I think they continue, to me, it sounded like anyway. But, so once they have all their grants, they categorize them: housing, food, medical, family, and then 2 miscellaneous. And we certainly know what goes in there if you thought of ours, And then each member got 2 or 3 grant applications that they had to pour through carefully. And once they, so they were the ones responsible for it. But everybody was to read the application. So then they would present at a meeting. And so this might be the one that, Lower Cape Outreach or like Independence House was presenting to the committee, and that person would give the information about what was in the what was in the application. And if during their review, they might visit or call the agency with questions, but they might not, because one committee member said, no, I didn't interview them before I presented. But if at the time of the presentation, committee members had a question, then that person was responsible for getting the answer. So if they had a new agency come to them, then they would ask that agency to come to a meeting, but they still, basically they farmed out their information that way.
And did they talk about their application? Like,
This was Brewster.
no,
but
but is their application fairly similar to ours?
yes,
The
I think
format?
so. They did not
and
have
they-
it with them,
Okay,
and they definitely had more money to spend.
yeah, but was their
they
application
got a lot of
online?
money.
Did they
But
talk-
their application was
And then-
online, and I didn't go and print it to look.
We don't
Okay.
know how it.
Cause I was
Well,
just wondering,
one-
part of the meeting was about trying to standardize an
Yes,
application.
so what we sort of spent quite a bit of time talking about the process each town
Okay,
used. And then by the end, we realized that one thing that could really make a difference would be to have one application that then we could add to if we wanted to, but that some parts of it could be standardized.
yeah,
Because so many of the agencies go from town to
Right,
town
right.
to town.
right,
And, like Independence House, even in it, and even I heard Dan Gates on the radio on, I don't know, Monday maybe, or maybe it was just yesterday, I don't know. It was yesterday with Ira Wood on OMR. And Ira was asking him different questions, and one of them was on funding, and he mentioned human service grants from different towns. And he said, we get money from just about every town on the Cape. So, some of these bigger, older organizations, they do spend the time to get money from the
Yeah.
different towns.
okay,
So if they had one application to fill out, it could make it be easier for them.
yeah,
And then we would still, and that this is, where our discussion can go, that each town had their own sort of way of tweaking through the process.
Yeah.
And some of it was because that's how, sort of like us, how it's sort of been done. We were the only town at the meeting that did, where we had contact and somebody from each agency attended the meeting. One of the reasons is because we have several people who are, haven't been on the committee that long. Whereas like Dennis, they had only 3 members on their committee when they could have, he thought maybe 7, but they just don't have other people.
Yeah.
So they might have an agency come to them, but they basically review things, have a spreadsheet and write out their justifications as to why the funding should be there. And they basically funded everybody.
What, you said Dennis?
Then Dennis, but their budget wasn't that big, but I have a feeling that they have other.
It's $60,000.
Yeah, $50,000 to $60,000, which is a little less than even what we have, and Dennis is a big town. But I think, as he said, there were other grants and such, so I think that some of the agencies may get funding through other parts.
Yeah.
Right.
And it doesn't go through their
Cause we
review.
get like 20 and we
Yeah,
have
they
what,
only get 10.
but we have.
Yeah, this year
89
we only have 12, but we
So we have
had,
like 89,000. So
Yeah.
it's almost equal.
right,
We have,
right.
Yeah, it's.
right,
it's sort of the
when
same
you think
ratio.
of the, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And Orleans did speak to their, because they have their committee and the public health person, I think that's who she was.
Yeah.
I think she attends some of the meetings. And there was also a select person there too. I don't know if I don't think she goes to their meetings, but she was probably their liaison. But somebody in the town felt like that they had to add these things on there, and it really, then the committee realized that it was more than these small agencies needed to fill out, that it was really only for large amounts of money, $50,000. I mean, they first thought it was 25, but they then realized that it's probably more like $50,000. And then
Which was
you
the
had
state
to
mandate,
go
right?
through all those pieces.
That was the state mandate.
Yeah.
To have
Yes,
that legally
and that
for the
is true, when you,
50,000, yeah.
right, it is
Yeah,
a state
yeah.
mandate type thing that, any town would have to do. So we have, those documents exist in this town hall too.
Yeah.
It's just that we don't deal with those funds,
Yes.
that kind of funding.
Makes sense.
So we,
Can I just ask a question, Kay,
Sure.
about, the application process being standardized? Do any of the, agencies complain or request this?
no, it was not, we
Did we
have had
ask
some
them?
people say, can you do it online? I mean, the application is done online and it can be filled out and it's there and then printed. And we ask to have the agency print it and make the copies and deliver it to
Right.
us. I think Dennis, I think, had, Dennis, it could come in online and then they would print it.
Okay.
As we said, it's like too much for our town, often to have to print it all, and I mean, that's, if you,
Just putting this.
yes, 12 different ones, 8 copies, that's a lot of printing for the town to do.
Are the questions about the same though? Do we ask potentially
lot
the
of-
same
I think-
information?
I think the questions are many. One person was asking a little bit about cost analysis and such,
Yeah.
and trying to figure out per client, how much did the, agency spend, and we finally, after a little discussion, it was like, you can't compare agency to agency. It's really more of looking at, for your own each agency, how many people are being served and
Yeah.
the ease of access to that agency and the need for that agency as opposed to doing it. So I don't think that it's necessarily come from the agencies, but one of the things we were just thinking is just that to make some piece of it be relatively the same. And I think that sort of already exists, but maybe it, somehow and maybe it will get started trying to work on it, and then we'll back away and say, we're just gonna keep ours.
I think the organization, from an organization standpoint, so many of them are volunteers. They don't get paid.
Right.
And they must put in a lot of time filling out these
Right,
grants.
but I still think we should ask them.
Yeah.
I think we're making a decision for them that we don't even
Why
know.
is it a decision for them?
That's
It's
the
the same,
most-
it would be an application that they're doing now, except it's a universal one.
It's
I don't
not
know.
like the
I
whole
don't know.
process, we
They
were,
may have a reason that I don't, that we're not thinking about.
Right,
You know,
right.
because there's people like who do grant writing, that's what they do.
well, the thing
Maybe-
is like a place.
Maybe that's a staff person, I don't know.
This
You
place
think
is got-
volunteers are writing
That
these
is
things?
staff.
Yeah, they got a few.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah,
now,
that would take-
This is staff.
yeah,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
one is because it's also information that I'm sure goes in their ones that are federal and state grants.
Right.
So, but when you get to something like, some of our closer local ones, even Lower Cape Outreach, which is not necessarily a volunteer writing it, but they don't have that many staff who are administrative type of staff who are gonna write it.
Right.
So if you could keep some pieces of it the same, that they could cut and paste.
So you're
Like
like
mission
thinking like an
statement.
IT department would sort of develop that, and that would go town to
No,
town?
no,
or
cause our
So
our
ours
application
comes from-
online,
comes from-
Kayla Urquhart,
Okay.
and it used to be, what was her name?
Yeah, I can't remember her name either.
Jackie. It was
Jackie,
Jackie's other
the other
assistant, yeah,
assistant.
but anyway,
Right.
that's terrible.
Yeah.
It'll come to me,
Yeah.
but if there were a couple of times I tweaked it. And every year she has to change the FY dates in it
Yeah.
and such, so it's easy to
So
go
this
in,
committee has jurisdiction over what the
basically,
application
yes,
information.
yes.
Wouldn't they have like one application and maybe check which towns they wanted it to go to?
It's
But
potential,
that would be the most
but
effective. But I know, I was noticing in here
Somebody who does it.
that there were 2 towns that last year she didn't apply to because she missed the date
Right.
here to me. And so she could have lost a significant amount of money
Right.
because this was,
ours was quite a
Too
bit.
much
for
work.
business, yes, yes.
which seems pretty sad for
But this,
her
this
agency.
is, this is got to do with federal funding, this is
All
like
the time.
Right,
this is a
right.
whole nother ballgame than our little application.
But I don't
Right,
think Kate is
And they
not,
had some problems, they had some problems financially with stuff, and accountability.
Yep.
And so they had some things I know that
That they were working through
Yeah,
themselves, that
right.
that was why they probably missed
but they-
the RFP.
Yeah.
Right.
Was more of
Yeah.
internal events as opposed to staying, because it's been so many years that we've been funding them to not
they've
have it
been around
come
for a
in.
long
Funding
time.
last
So if they
year.
could make it
Oh, I
easier.
wonder.
Right, but the
Yeah.
problem, each town sort of, I mean, they do.
Yeah.
Like Brewster and Orly, they sent out some information to the agencies that had received funding, just as we do, and agencies know that basically it's this time of year that these RFPs are out there. And, some agencies are just coming into the idea that the towns have these committees and having money. One town, it was,
Brewster, I thought.
if they heard of an agency, they
Brewster.
reached out to them and said, would you like to apply for money? Well, we're so limited that I just feel like, oh, that would be, I'm not gonna reach out and say, yeah, we'll give you 50 cents if you want.
But one of the things Kate hadn't gotten to was at the end of the meeting, there was a decision, I think, that there would be a committee of people representing all the different human services to come up with that
Or the human
universal.
services or the
Yeah.
human services committees,
Our committees, our local
our
people,
the committees. okay.
yes, yes.
Not the human
And
service.
the thing
agency.
is
No,
that,
no, no.
No, the-
we're not the agencies.
I
And
still think we should ask them though. Cause we would get at least feedback.
Well, the
on
thing
what
is
would
that
be
if you
helpful
look,
for
if
that.
you look at our
You mean in
application,
terms of filling out the application?
Like, what would be
Or
helpful
which
for you? How would
information
it
to give
work
us?
better for you? If you could apply to all the towns at once, or you could,
Mhm.
you know, I mean, you're talking about a software program,
Right,
you know?
well, the thing is that I'm sure they're just using, Word or, Pages on Apple or something like that. It's just something to
maybe not. You don't know.
to type in the information on there. It's not like they have
Because
necessarily,
some of them are sending it,
we don't
digitally,
in
but we
this,
don't, we just,
don't.
they
And
get it by.
Rooster in Orleans, I don't think,
No, I
I
think
think
we're
But
they,
I would bet in the future that would.
Yeah, a
be
program could be done where they
Yeah.
just type it into one thing
Right,
without
right.
doing
right.
words.
That's probably the future.
And then it would go to the
Right.
towns and.
But there are some things
I
that
think our
do,
the expectation would be that we either get it online, we look at it online, or we decide to print it up. I mean,
The
I
thing
think
is-
that's gotta be a burden for them to print up, 8,
except that
these
then
things.
you're assuming too, that the members, I mean, if we're sitting here interviewing somebody, I want my copy of that grant.
Could we not make the paper, like the printing though, a big
Yes,
thing?
a
Like,
big
let's look at cause
Yeah,
that's,
yeah.
If you
can
look
we look
at
at the beginning and,
our application,
Okay.
it isn't it isn't a difficult application. And it does have some things that are specific to Eastham, and
Right.
that's the part
yes, that would be
where
a
you've got
sticking
to be
point.
careful that there's a way
Right,
to have those pieces
Right.
in there, because we can't just make a decision if we don't have statistics from an agency
right.
concerning the
And the
Eastham
town to
people.
town
Yeah, the
information
town-
may be sensitive.
But on a universal application, there would always be a section that is town specific,
Yes,
and that's what you would
Yeah.
ask. That's your question.
so
But you know, Kate,
The
to
data.
Ellen's point,
yeah,
at the end of this, does anyone send out a thank you for applying? You've been approved. Who sends out that letter that says you've been approved, or nobody ever sends out a letter that says you've been approved for so much?
I don't know what Kayla does after town meeting, because they can't send anything out until after the warrant has been passed and the money approved.
Okay, because if we send out something, that would be the perfect time to include something that Ellen has just said, to put something in that letter. is, How, do you find it onerous? Would it be helpful if we did A, B, and C? Do you have any suggestions?
Well,
how
the
we
thing
can
is that
improve?
that could be something that we could, I mean, you could do I think you would need to, you would do it separately. To me, that note, because I think that there is something because they are sent a contract to sign to get their money and some things. So that is when they are notified that
Yeah.
there's an award. And it's probably after the 1st of July anyway, and I think it's a little further into the fiscal year
Yeah.
that finally
I'm
happens.
assuming that a committee would be made together to work on this.
Yes.
Right,
And I think that Hilda's suggestion of having input from the people who would be using it is excellent, but would,
Yeah.
or Ellen's, or
Yeah.
the group down here.
right.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be best done from the committee perspective and
Yes,
get
I
an
agree.
answer from, like, going up towards the committee rather than from an individual town?
Mhm.
Because it would apply to all of the towns that were participating in the,
Yeah, that makes
in the
sense.
effort.
Yeah, maybe even something to the extent that this is being considered, a universal application is being considered.
Right,
How would that,
Right.
would you
right.
feel that would be
We're
comfortable?
looking
if you
for
had
thing is-
feedback on
right.
how we can improve the process.
The thing
your
is that we
perspective,
also,
yeah,
that if we're
that's-
gonna, to me, it felt like Wellfleet and True and Provincetown also use applications.
yeah,
And
they should be invited.
they should be
And
included
they-
if we're going to be
They
working
may
on
have
one.
been,
Yeah,
No,
and maybe
They weren't invited
Oh,
to
they
this
weren't?
meeting.
they would have done that.
You know,
Maybe they would have,
Whatever we're.
yeah,
calling
they have a different
Outer Cape,
national
whatever.
line.
yes, yes, there you go.
We made the cut.
They weren't.
Yeah.
Maybe
because,
they like
you
that.
know,
They probably wouldn't have brought food. or
yeah, I
something.
think there is a good basis if you've looked at the whole first part of it.
Yeah, this is pretty, straightforward. and
Yes,
simple, I think,
you
right?
know, and.
And I think a programmer could do it fairly easily to do the application. And you could even do it in like an Acrobat, an Adobe Acrobat form that could be filled out pretty generally.
Yeah,
Hey, do you know if when they get our application, can they write on there, can they type on that, or, I know some of them come in handwritten, some of them.
Right, right.
Reflect that, but don't look like that, so.
You know,
I'm
if you
assuming they
look
can't.
at it, like this one is. I don't,
No, that's okay, don't waste.
I
my
don't
time.
know,
I just figured there's
online,
something
if
that-
you,
if you-
I think it's in a PDF or something, which would mean that you should be able
Yeah,
to
you print
access
on
it and then
Okay, type on, I'm just thinking they're kind of used to doing that already.
put it
They were
into
doing that
yeah.
Yeah.
Cause then you should be able to put it into something that
Yeah.
then you
And
can,
then
Yeah.
print out.
Yeah, Adobe has a form fill, but Google also, you could do it in Google
Right.
Docs.
right, in
Not
the
that I
Google
can-
Doc.
Not
Make,
me.
I know it can be
drives me
done,
nuts.
it's like magic,
Yeah, yeah.
it can be done.
right,
If
right.
you know
Yeah.
what you're doing.
Not if you just go.
Huh?
If you know what you're
Right,
doing.
right.
Yeah.
It can be
Website,
It can be
yeah,
done.
Yeah.
Right on it.
No, okay.
I mean, you could write on, I shouldn't say, you could do one of those little pens and
Yeah.
draw on it,
But you
but
can't-
nobody's gonna do that.
it doesn't say you can
So it
edit
doesn't, you can't
But you
download
can't-
it
you
as
can't, well, maybe, I wouldn't
Yeah.
say, I wouldn't
if
say
you could
that
download
can't.
it as a PDF.
Cause
Cause if you can print it,
I mean, I don't have the.
Okay. That's all right. That's probably not important, it's just.
Yeah,
only because I know you can,
Maybe
but anyway.
Big's padded.
But that would make, could make pieces of it that are, reasonable.
Yeah.
And then we can,
State has a template,
well, somebody suggested more the Barnstable County,
yeah,
if
Yeah.
they have something to look at.
yeah.
Yeah,
Because I think that, basically you wanna know what their mission is. And then how do, what services do the residents of your town use? And, what's the need for that?
right, and what is their budget, how do they get their money,
Right,
and who is on their boards?
I thought it was interesting, because Orleans got an automatic 3% increase every year,
pretty much so, yeah.
and.
And it was
Brewster,
tied to,
10.
they thought they were getting 10% more, and it was somewhat tied to what the entire budget went up. That they would get the same amount. If the town budget went up by 2.5%, then they
That
would
was
get the
Orleans.
2.5%.
Is our increase based on, like,
We don't know.
you pick a number from 1 to 4,
It basically.
like
they
maybe
were-
throw a dice or something?
We have had years where they've said, cause I will often ask, can I get the 2.5% increase? And they will, I might get a yes or
I know,
or a no, or,
Have you lost your
try it
mind?
and
No,
see, or I'll let you know, or whatever, and I got, even before things were put out there, it was already you're flatly, there's no increase this year. Or, looking,
I'd have to say that's.
but,
it's funny, Dave is on the CPC committee. And they get money, that's gotten from, there's a 3%.
from the tax,
On the,
yeah,
and they get $1.5 million to spend on, and there's 5 categories. It's
Yeah.
Housing and, open space and recreation and a couple of other things. And I talked to him about this committee. And he is in meetings for that committee, and he said he gets so angry that they can't allocate like some of the money from that to the things that we work on. 'Cause he
Yeah.
feels that this is equally important
Yes.
to the health of our community.
yes,
And we talk
Yes.
about it, and he's like, they spent $1 million renovating town hall. And we can't spend another 10,000
Yeah,
on stuff.
Yeah.
But- And I
Yeah.
say to him, it's like different groups, it's different pockets. Like one is from the state, is the CPC funds, and this is from the town and the land. I have to separate it by orders.
so basically what we, for a common application, it's like, what's important? You know, general information.
Yeah.
Would be the first. And then what's important to each town. And you know, meaning, you know, the numbers of people, what services, et cetera.
Yeah,
And then sort of, you know, budget and,
and I do think that the chart, the information, like we have of the Eastham residents served in the past year, I do think that that's important for us to know.
Yeah.
and I like our little chart that we have there.
Yeah.
Because
I
by,
do too.
it,
very
it
informative.
gives you a way to really look at it and see.
Right.
And it sort of makes them have to come up with the cost, a little bit of their own cost analysis of,
Right.
you know.
You're saying the beginning would be, like what's on the first page of Independence House, where they talk about
Yeah.
the mission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Need in the community.
And how much harm would there be if it were all residents served and we got information from different towns? How like deleterious would that be to the process?
So we would know how much they're giving it, what they're doing for all the other towns.
Yeah,
So you should
A lot of
read
that
it.
information in here.
yeah, in here, they
I
do
don't-
mention,
It's good and it's, I guess, even just a general idea, but on some of the bigger agencies, you do get that.
Yeah,
right,
she
but
did.
then there's some people like Mustard Seed Kitchen doesn't do
Doesn't do other
Right.
towns, right?
other towns,
does-
like towns
Who else
past
does-
here.
Yeah.
She doesn't do anything further down. So there
Because
wouldn't
she
be.
doesn't do it, or she doesn't give us the information.
She doesn't serve
she doesn't
anybody
serve
from-
anybody
Yeah,
past
it's
here.
just Eastham and Wellfleet residents.
Yeah.
It may be a one or two Truro, I
Yeah.
think, but it was
So I
just
mean, that would be
basically.
blank, but other people wouldn't necessarily see it. I'm just trying to think of
Look at
what.
it, like this
harm-
one, they have,
Yeah. they
have
have
the
the whole-
whole,
And
Okay.
here she does.
So
the
what-
units at that-
And if she sends that to everybody, like, is there harm?
Thank you.
almost their harm.
And that if we see what happens.
And then how
in
does
the
that actually
town.
go with this?
It's
I don't know.
just, yeah, yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of-
What town you don't wanna live in.
I guess- I
I
guess-
guess has a lower rate of violence.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I
what-
just feel that I'm not sure if it's necessary.
She might be.
It's like I almost, I don't know. I go back
Is it
and
like
forth,
too
like
much information? or-
either too much information or
Yeah.
should we just focus on Eastham?
Yeah, I
and,
agree with you.
But
you
there
know,
may be a way to separate out too, if somebody just fills in everything on one page to separate out the town that you're sending it to. And that would be a programming question. So that somebody wouldn't have to do separate
Right.
applications. I
Right,
think that's what
right.
we're trying to avoid.
Well, I think that maybe that's a separate page.
Right.
It's not one question embedded in the middle that somehow it's attachment C.
Yeah, but you can do it,
And
just
then
So you just
it's
a
just for the
programming
town.
have a certain program
Like
that you
which
just
town does
populate
this
those, you know.
apply
certain
to
data
Eastham
points.
check mark. So everything that would be Eastham would be
Yeah.
attached to the same.
But
I
I think that's an IT project, they really do.
you know, it's some of the, yeah,
Well, it's something to bring up.
it is,
Right.
and stuff.
And not that it can't happen, because everybody's got an IT department now, every town,
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think we would
not
have
yeah.
us. I
on a
think that-
regional.
And I
Yeah,
know
regional
that,
scale, though.
and also you get, you know, like Kayla has, it's better computer skills, I know, than I do, as far as what she can do on you know,
Yeah,
making it
Devin,
work, and
great,
yeah,
yeah.
Devin, I'm sure can come up with
all
things.
those guys, you know what to do.
And if we can't, then we're probably in trouble, because they should be able to do something.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think that it is sort of the next step. It may not be in place for the next year totally, maybe pieces of it, and it happens in a wave. Just because to totally, it might be too much to get it all in place. Who knows? We'll see.
Right.
Might be like 30 Would be like herding cats.
It could be, that's also what I'm, it
Yeah,
just
there's
might
that.
not,
Everybody seemed to want that in some form or another.
Yeah.
They were all very
yes,
positive
yeah,
about it.
yeah.
And
So,
just so everybody knows, Kate did an incredible job of representing us. Dee and I were very
Yeah.
impressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
thank you.
I mean, our
I
process.
would not
to
have
me,
expected
reading
anything
it looks
else.
like the best process.
I feel like ours
Yeah.
is simple.
Yeah.
Right.
and
More
straight-
comprehensive.
Yeah,
you know?
it's
Yeah.
comprehensive
Yeah.
and, but straightforward.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah,
it's
I
also
like-
even
yeah.
the way that we do it, because you get
Yes.
6 opinions. And so I think eventually you get.
Right.
The same opinions are applied to
Yeah.
each applicant. And if you have somebody, I mean, like Dee may not come up with exactly the same measuring sticks
Right,
that other people do,
Right,
so you may
yeah.
not get a fair
right.
or an even
And-
assessment of
and
each
the-
person.
Right, and the
Which
way
group?
Brewster had said they were trying out the different categories, thinking that maybe somebody would take on, say, health or the housing and get a little more background information and expertise in it, so that then they could represent the grants information better to the committee. And that has, some validity, but we sort of get that when we have somebody come from the agency, and because we offer Zoom, and because they did even ask this, we said, yes, we usually get somebody pretty high up in the organization to,
I find that personal contact with the director extremely important. And I don't know why, I can't really explain it, except where there's a lot of direct feeling about how authentic the organization is,
Yes.
how well organized they are, there's a lot to it besides the paper. The paper's kind of dry, well, but it's effective.
right.
But it's really that contact that tells you how that organization is running.
You get some of the passion of the, yeah, the,
Right,
what, because that's how it started most likely, with some kind of a real need and somebody who was willing to tackle it.
Right.
And, I mean, as I said, I heard Dan Gates from the AIDS support group. That started when they needed the support.
Right.
And it was totally grassroots, and it's now, spread across the Cape. Still very needed, and they've, added in, some drug related issues and such, and it's just. But that's where it started, was that passion, and it's still there.
Yeah.
And, so it was. I agree, I think there's just something to be said about meeting somebody from an agency, and yes, we could go there, but it's too hard for all of us to go to an agency to see how it's functioning, and sometimes I'm not sure that's the best. I mean, to walk into Lower Cape Outreach, are you really gonna get a sense of what they're doing there? No. You're gonna walk into a bunch of offices, and you're not gonna listen in on a private conversation, you're just gonna see their offices. And they're bright and they're warm, they want them to be that way, so, they're welcoming. But when we get somebody, either Kate or it's gonna be an old Jerry, I always say his name wrong, who used to be with Outer Cape Health, will be speaking to us from there. But he's moved agencies, but they, again, will get the information about the breadth of their programs from, somebody in that agency. And you can get some of that by reading, but at the same time, it's,
You need the stats, you definitely need the numbers.
yes.
And that gets delivered here.
And if you needed to really justify to, say, the select board or whatever, at a situation, they were saying, well, should we really be funding them? You could come up with all of those statistics and say, this is what they're doing and the reason why and blah, blah, blah. But we have that along with the passion, the two things linked together. So, yeah. Okay, yeah, but I sort of felt that way, that once we finished the meeting, that we have a pretty good way of doing it.
Yeah.
And Orleans felt very formal in their little, which is fine, that's, you know, they're,
Style in town.
yeah.
Different town.
I'm surprised with Dennis. I thought the Dennis would have a lot more. tourists.
I do too. I do
You know, it's a
too.
wealthy community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
I wonder
much.
what Chatham does.
Oh,
I don't know.
Nobody was there from Chad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be interesting though.
It would be. I'd like to see actually a whole analysis entire.
One of the
Well,
things, and I know we talked about it, or maybe, I know I brought it up one time, I haven't. A meeting I attended,
Okay, Lisetta's gonna be here.
Okay.
is to be able to see how they've used the money that we have given them in the past. If they have asked for money last year, and we gave them 6,000.
Okay, hi there. Welcome. Can you hear us? We can't hear you.
You're on mute, you're on mute.
Now
There
I'm
you-
on. Okay,
Welcome.
thank you so much.
Yes, we're glad that you were able to join us tonight. And
Absolutely.
we've been discussing a little bit about the application process and a little bit about, we're maybe working with committee, and we think we can start here.
Yeah.
With, in several different towns and maybe trying to standardize the application. And one thing we were doing was looking at yours in thinking of that and, you know, wondering if it would be a help to have some standard form from various towns.
I think so, absolutely. It would help, because of course we always create a response, but if, you know, yeah, it would help if it's streamlining.
Yes, well,
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
that's what we're thinking of. I mean, you provided us with a great deal of other, you know, information and it, you know, it's fantastic because we really, the graphics at the end, I do want to say that was fantastic.
Good. Yeah.
All of that information, it really made, you know, things stood out and you could really visualize so much more. And
Good.
the, couple of the different testimonials.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, you can't get through them without, you know, a tear and then a smile and such, and to know that, but it's nice to have something in there that's really getting right down to, all the good that you are doing, and that there is a positive side at the other end.
Yeah. Yeah. We obviously we think it's important, since you are, you know, providing us with funding, that we are able to, you know, give you an idea of how important the funding is. It really helps us, you know, to be able to, I say make a difference, but it's not a strong enough term. I
Yeah.
think it's to help people to transform their lives is what I would say.
Yes, yes, I mean, because we know we don't provide very much, and we're sorry that you didn't apply last year. That was, but, you know, there's all kinds of, you know, things that go
Well,
on, but
you know, I laughed. I said, you know, I've been at Independence House for a long time, and I have never, it's sort of the long time you do, the longer I've actually let go of some of my certain things and delegated over. And I think sometimes with transitions, you know, things fall between the cracks, but I think we're in a good role now. So yeah.
yes, well, that's good. That's good
Yeah,
to
upset
know.
about that. I'm like, oh, are you kidding me? We missed that.
Well, it's not that you weren't thought about, that's for sure.
Okay,
And so
thank
I was
you.
not surprised when it came in this year and was
Yes.
glad to see it. So, you know, you give us, you know, a lot of good statistics in it. I mean, to look and see the number of people in
Mhm.
Eastham that you were able to be involved with. But it also means that people are aware and know that you exist and will seek your
And that's
services.
and that's what our hope is. And you know, the way that we collect these statistics is whenever someone comes into Independence House, and I know I've shared this with you before, our counselors do what's called an intake. It's a form that they fill out, and on that form, we do ask people what town they live in. So that way we know for sure we're not just putting it down. So we track by town, what is the
Uh-huh.
town you're from? So that's how we get those numbers. Yeah. We do it for every town though, not
Yeah.
just East. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it helps us to kind of see where where the need is, and maybe where we could do if necessary. But it seems to me that we do a pretty good job serving all the towns for the most part still.
Yes, and I know that
Mhm.
the senior center, the police department, the fire, I mean, there's also a lot of agencies in town that have contact with the residents who also
Mhm. Mhm.
would provide them with information. As I was reading, I wasn't sure, are you still at the high school?
No, you're talking about not with East. No, no, we haven't been last year. Yeah, things
Well,
yeah.
the construction also makes it harder to be there, but
Yeah, and sometimes it all depends on what we can get going for that particular year with the school, and
yeah,
what's on their agenda. But we're never unavailable. This people they reach out to us and we will respond. It might not be every day we're in the school, but if an incident happens, for
yeah,
example, they'll call Independence House. Yeah.
okay.
Do you do any educational programs for,
Sorry.
do you do any educational programs for young people,
Oh, absolutely. We do young educational programs for
but
young people.
not at the high school?
Not this year, not this
Okay.
past year. We have to, and I always say this, if any help you can give us, we'll take it. We always have to ask, and we don't mind asking. And then we have to get past the, any kind of red tape that might be there because of the how can I say it? We don't want it might seem that we shouldn't be there because of the subject matter. So,
Yeah,
but we know that we tailor it to what's appropriate. But on the face of it, a parent
Right,
or a school
right.
teacher or something might feel like, oh, that's too dark. We don't want that here, And so we've always dealt with that, not just in all school for the most part. And so, and in the climate that we are in now, it's we want to be careful that we are wanted and that there's
yeah,
permission and that the wrong attention doesn't come. We want it to be in the right way.
yes, but yeah, at the same time, it would be, to me, if I were the administrator, I would want some kind of something going on because the kids are into that, the dating and it's just so many pieces that they are exploring themselves. And to have some sense of, how to do it, or how to be positive, how to do it well and whatever.
Yeah, and sometimes what we've run into, not with East Ham in particular, but we have is how do they fit us in with the with the curriculum, with the
Yeah,
things that they must do. And this
they
is not
must, yeah,
always the teen dating violence or teaching about healthy relationships. We definitely agree that it's educational and it should be part of standard education. But I don't think
yeah,
that's what the average person thinks of when they think of, or even systems when they think of education. It's gotten better. We've kind of made a lot of inroads on the Cape with a lot of the schools, but it's still, we have to really encourage and convince the administrators and the social workers and
yeah,
they're all busy and they have their
yes.
that they have to do, and we're not part of their curriculum per se.
Yeah.
So it's not a complaint. Again, it's just a reality because
It
of the
is a reality,
subject
and
matter
they
that we
are,
deal with
yeah,
is not schools, are very much okay with reaching out to us, but it's also a fine line for them because they don't want it to seem as if there's abuse going on in their schools. our
Yeah.
presence there might make people think that.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah, rather than it being a positive that maybe it's prevention.
Preventative, exactly.
And,
The students often want us.
Yeah.
The
I
students-
would bet that there are students that would want that, yeah.
This is Felice, I'm online. Hello, once again, thank you for coming. I just
believe.
had a question with regard to the possibility of individual students
Mhm.
needing or wanting your services, that they may not want to get their families involved because
Mhm.
perhaps the problem is with the family.
True.
They may or may not
Mhm.
have a trusted teacher who in
Mhm.
turn, from what you're saying, may not feel free to make the referral, to
Exactly.
you.
Yeah.
How, in that kind of setting, what do you suggest the
That-
person in need do?
That's an excellent question. So let me, I'm gonna answer it in part A. So part A, typically when we go into this a school, we're not necessarily going in to provide individual counseling. It's more educational. So it would be in a group situation, and we're providing information. On part B, the way that we have our agency set up is to address exactly what you just said. So a team could actually call us directly
Mhm.
if they, through our hotline number, and we would talk to them on the phone. They can, we have a teen chat line. They don't even have to tell us their name. They can just tell us their situation, and we provide that information when we do outreaches or when we're in a school. So even if a teacher called us, even if there was a trusted person, they could not make the referral because
Mhm.
that person is, not an adult, but the
Right.
themselves could call us, and we have a policy where we would work with a teen for at least 3 sessions, and then of course then we would assess the situation. To your point, because we would want parental consent, and if there is something that's going on at home, let's say it was sexual abuse, then we would make a report. We wouldn't necessarily, if it was a person in the home, we're not, it's tricky, right? So we don't want to
Right.
them and get their consent. So we'd have to make a report, not to the police, but to Child Protective, to
Yeah.
DCF if that were indicated. But that's not our first go-to. Our first go-to is to
Right.
kind of talk with the teen or the youngster. And we do work with youngsters, and we have teens that use our chat. We have a chat line. We've had it for a long time. They can even excuse me, my cat's yelling at me here. I guess getting excited. And they can text our agency for an appointment. And the reason why I'm telling you that is that those are public numbers. We don't do, any counseling by text or phone.
Right.
Someone can, but our chat line is secure. But what we find, which is interesting, this is an aside, we find that more parents use the chat line sometimes than the teens do. So I hope that answers your question. We wouldn't want to have anyone in a public, group or anything like that. Unless some people kids might choose, but very rarely.
Right.
And we don't encourage that unless they're in a safe group counseling session where it's all people, all the individuals in the group are in same or similar situations and they're giving support to one another. But we wouldn't necessarily in a school setting. And we wouldn't even take a referral. We would I wouldn't say we would have to walk the teacher through or whoever to kind of help to figure out the best way to be able to respond to this youngster. Does that make sense?
Right. Yes.
Yes.
And I'm sort of interested
Non-individualized.
if you could elaborate just a bit. Let's say a student has confided in a teacher and the teacher, the child is afraid to involve the parents, or perhaps the parents are the problem. How would the teacher approach your organization And what, I mean, legally, what can the teacher,
Lisa.
what is the teacher empowered to do in lieu of parental involvement?
Yes,
Teachers are mandated reporters, and
Yeah.
if it is something that's happening at home and they
Uh-huh.
feel concerned enough that they would reach out to us, then they need to report it to DCF. Now, if it's a situation that's not in the home where it was a sexual assault by somebody, or abuse by somebody else outside of the home, then again, because they're minors, unfortunately, that is not, I mean, even if they called us, that's probably the advice we would give them. So they could call, we'd give them, we would do the same thing. We would, because we are also mandated reporters. If we suspect, that there is that something has happened and this child's been, or a young person's been harmed, but what the difference, sometimes what we've done, we ask them if there's a safe person that can support them and be with them. And if they want to, go to one of our offices, or we can do it over the phone. But yeah, the first step is, so then once DCF would listen, obviously, as you
Yeah.
know, and if they feel that it's a case, then at that time they become involved, and they might
Uh-huh.
they could make a referral to Independence House. But it's a tricky situation. And if
Yeah.
it's usually in the home, though, there is at least a person, meaning the non-abusive
Mother.
person. Yeah, the mother who
So,
who,
yeah.
who might, even if mom's skeptical, and we do have those situations where, but most moms believe want to help their children.
Yeah.
So it really is, you have a pathway and you have to figure out how the particular situation goes along. And I know in our library, we do have a confidential corner that is aimed at teens with, different books, about different topics, but also pamphlets. And I know Independence House is there.
Yeah.
And so that phone numbers are listed and such, so that is a spot for kids to get information, because the books are not ones, they do not have a barcode on them, they are not checked out by anybody, they can be borrowed, they can be kept. And
That's great.
It's a wonderful little spot, and it's tucked away, so somebody can work their way over there and not have to be noticed that it's happening. And
But absolutely, because that's truly empowerment. That's an empowerment model, because then someone, can get information as they wish. And the other thing, going back to the teacher can also, again, depending on the child's capacity, they can empower the child to make that call themselves as well to Independence House.
Yeah.
yeah. But
Thank
all
Thank
right,
you.
yes. So you've been through a lot of different things, and you've got these, a great deal of budget information. And so you've had to make some changes in the way you're doing some things, but that's wonderful. It's almost sometimes a good thing for an organization to have to really take a close look at all your processes and.
Absolutely. Last year was a tough year. It was a tough year for us, and we definitely, we really came to, we usually do. It was just wonderful teamwork, but we went through some difficulties with, just even with the staff, illness, and we had a few people in our office that had cancer, and
Oh, gosh, yeah.
we recently lost a staff member, and then we had staff shortages, and it was just challenging, but it really, we got through it. We have some great people that work at Independence House, and what's really important is the mission, honestly.
Yeah.
And that's what holds us together, quite frankly. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes you come through things stronger as an organization when things like that, it might not feel that way initially, but it's most likely, but it's obvious that you're services are unfortunately needed, but yet they are, they're very necessary, but yet at the same time, I feel like you've taken so many pieces of it.
Mhm.
The court system, the support, the follow through, having.
Shelter, the housing, the basic
Yes,
needs,
yeah.
everything, because different people need different things. And if you're, as we've talked about over the years, but even now more so, if anyone were skeptical about the extent of these issues, you just have to look at all the things that are coming out in the news all the time, all the women that are coming forward about being sexually assaulted, and this could have happened 10 years ago or 5 years ago, and no one knew. And so I think, unfortunately, what this really proves is how prevalent and just widespread, and how many, I'm going to say women, but people are really affected. And our country, I'm more clear now to say that while we believe that we would want to see it, of course we would like to end these domestic violence and sexual violence, but right now we are stuck with responding because we haven't quite figured out how to prevent it in the first place.
Right.
We hope we have some strategies and we have some curriculum, and we hope that by working with younger people at an earlier age and talking about healthy relationships, but it's these are issues that have been with the world for a long time, globally and nationally, locally.
Yes.
Lysette, you wrote about elder abuse. Can you tell us a little bit about how that works with Independence House?
It depends. So one of the things that we do is we spend a lot of time at the senior center or senior centers, and we don't necessarily, we work with any age. So if someone were, let's say in their 60s, which someone like me, honestly, would call their agency, and they wanted to be sheltered, we provide the same shelter for them. The difference is with people who are quote unquote elderly, we have to look at what we do is we look at their individual situation. So for instance, someone that's in their 60s that comes into our shelter, our program wouldn't be about necessarily helping them to build new skills to go out in the workplace, because they're at a different spectrum. Then we also have seniors that are at home. They've been with their partner for, I'm going to say, 100 years. And so what we might provide, they're not necessarily looking to leave. They just want support. So it might be, it's on the phone, or virtual if they can navigate that. Sometimes elder abuse is also, or I'd say domestic violence or sexual violence with elders shows up. It's not always with someone they're related to. It could be happening in a nursing home or a facility that they're living in. So that's where we are also, we'll also go there and try to intervene. So it's not, they're not, we had, I actually had, I think it was a few months ago, one of the court advocates came in, well, I supervise her, she's a director, and she was very upset. She said, yeah, I just helped a woman with a protective order, and she was, I don't know, 78, 79. And she said it was very heart-wrenching because this lady came into the court, and she was strong from what I was told, and she was not having it anymore. So my answer is, even though we talk about elder abuse, we just want to identify that that's a specific segment of the population that also experiences domestic violence and sexual violence, but some of their needs are a little bit different than, say, someone who is 25 or 20. And that's why we pull it out, but the dynamics are the same. it's a very, it's case by case. Sometimes there have also been situations where family members will call us because maybe another person in the family is, harming the person through their finances, or just being, I'm going to say mean, not being very nice because maybe the person has an illness or they're frustrated with them. But we can call elder services, or child elder protective services, but it's another system that's a little tricky because they can't just go in and do whatever they want. There has to be some consent.
Yeah.
And exactly. And we might we might be concerned, but we're also limited in what we can do. So we can provide information, offer support, help elders to know that they're entitled to a protective orders, that they can make decisions about their finances, that they don't necessarily have to keep the same family members or people taking care of their finances. So there's a lot of different approaches. It just depends on that individual person's situation. But the defining thing is that people who are older, they will call us. Most of them are comfortable on the phone talking to us. If somebody has other like health issues, let's say they're moving into dementia or Alzheimer's, that's kind of outside of our expertise. And then we would need to try to make a referral through whoever is working with them or a family member, and we can't necessarily have the capacity to really delve into that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had some questions about your unit hours of service. I was trying to wrap my mind around it a little bit. So under counseling, you have the unit hours of service are expected to be 110 for domestic sexual victims. And it's counseling at a cost of 320 per unit. So what is it, a unit of service?
A unit of service is like 1 hour of counseling, for example, or a phone call, or like a hotline call that might come in, or so it could be either in the domestic violence or sexual violence realm. It could be a visit to our food pantry, or we're providing some food. So a unit is defined by what the service is. And so like
It's 1 hour.
it's not always 1 hour, and that's a good question.
Okay, all right.
Because we don't do an hour hotline call, for example. So if someone calls our 24/7 hotline, unless it's a counseling hotline, unless it's a counseling session by phone, it would be an hour. But if it were someone in crisis, it's 15 to 20 minutes is the most that we spend. So we do it in 15
So
minutes.
could we say that a unit is one interaction with?
Yes.
Okay.
That's that. Yeah, thank you. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, a contact. Yes, but but let's just say this to be clear: if someone just called and it was like 2 minutes and it was obviously the wrong number, or they just were looking for information, then we wouldn't even record that. We might just write that a call came in, but we wouldn't count it as a unit because it's not long.
Yeah.
It should be at least 15 minutes.
Something that there was an actual real, the contact and some information passed. Okay. That makes a lot of sense, because it wouldn't be, for some of these, you couldn't do, like emergency shelter, how many hours, it's more the days and such, so.
Exactly, yeah. But and so if somebody is in a group, for example, that unit hours, like our groups are usually 90 minutes, an hour and a half, because that would involve more. It's not just one person, so you want to give people enough time to talk. There's 5 of them or something.
Thank you very much for that. I don't think, does anybody else have any other questions? I think there's a lot in here to digest, but again, it's the kind of thing that it's all good information and good background for real justification as to, what funding you know,
Mhm.
what you're doing with any of the money that you're receiving.
Yep.
I do have to tell you that, we have, our funds are limited. We do want to try to figure out a way to at least begin refunding you.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if we'll be able to get back up to the amount that you had previously. We'll see how we can juggle our funding and such. Because we've been told we have to level fund and we, have
Mhm.
various things that we are already committed to. So, uh, we, understand their agency needs to have something from the town of Eastham. So even if, we'll figure out something, I think. There's no
Yes.
guarantee.
Oh, please
But
don't say
it does
that.
it does make a difference. We know that
I
to
know.
have each town
It
support
does.
you when
It does.
you go for further grants too, to
Mhm.
have
Mhm.
something. So that's why, and also what you do is not something that is replicated easily by any other agency. They are coming
No.
to you for what
Right.
the services that you provide.
Right.
When they come up against a situation that needs your
Mhm.
services.
Can
So,
I just ask you what MOVA stands for?
It's the
It's on the one-
Mass Office of Victim Assistance.
That's what it is. Okay, thank you.
And
Yeah.
we're also that agency is where we apply for federal funds that are fines for white collar crimes, is where those are not
Okay.
dollars, those are fines for, white collar crimes that go into that fund. And that fund is going down quite a bit too. So it's it's challenging. So please, I beg you, give us what you can.
yes, we know that it is challenging and totally understand that. And there are, some of those federal and state funds, particularly the federal funds, could easily be redirected elsewhere, unfortunately.
No, it is.
Mhm.
So if I read this correctly, though, so it costs $220 a day
For
for
this, which one are you looking at? The
for
shelter?
shelter, for
Yeah.
emergency domestic violence shelter.
Yep. It probably
Okay,
costs
and-
more than that. No, we haven't updated that in probably 2 years. Yes. Because
Okay,
we're providing a room, we're providing food, we're providing counseling. We're providing when I say providing, it's not people come in and we work with the kids. It's not that they're dependent, like, oh, they can't do anything, but those are the resources that are available and that
Yeah.
So it's not just a bed that is.
Oh,
it's-
no,
It
no.
encompasses a great deal of other, which actually
Exactly.
almost is like not very much money towards it at all, when you
Mhm.
think of that.
I think I know the answer to this is no, but there's no limit as to how long someone can use your services. Okay.
No, we have people come, some people come once, some people come twice, some people come at least 12 times for a
Okay.
session. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
And then, and the ones you want are the ones who come through a situation, then go on to schooling and get their social work degree and come back to you and say, can I work here?
Mhm.
Well, and we've definitely had some wonderful experiences like that over the years. And the board of directors really recently did a retreat, a fundraising retreat, and the facilitator asked the board members why they were on the board of Independence House, and we have male and female board members, and I can tell you that I would say 10 out of our 12 board members identified as having had some, whether they were children at the time or as adults. And we actually have one board member now who used in our agency many years ago. She's been around for a long time and she is so and she's very successful now. but she almost died when she came to, and she speaks publicly about it, and she's so grateful to be able to tell, I would say the world really how useful the services have been for her. So yes, and that's what I don't want to, say that's always the case with sometimes, it's not, the outcome might be not exactly as maybe we would, exactly, but the majority of our clients, because we do ask them to fill out a survey, they feel that we help them. So that's
Wonderful.
That's good, yeah.
yeah.
And to get the feedback of what, if they felt there was anything else that could have helped them.
You know what we hear a lot, I know you guys have to go, housing. That's really,
Yeah.
that comes up, and that's just not something, we do the best that we can, but I think our capacity is just never going to, well, I shouldn't say never, it's just difficult, it's not, they're not old buildings that we can convert, or,
Yes,
lots
right.
of land that we can.
Well, because everybody is looking at all of everything to try to, have more housing for, that's easier for people to access. And, maybe there might be less anger if people had places to live that was better. But, so thank you, and
Thank
we
you so
will,
much.
be, definitely having your name on our list for, consideration. And,
So much. I
Okay.
would agree. Independence House and our clients appreciates that. And
Yeah.
yeah, but this is November. Yeah, so this time next year, if I'm here presenting, I think I'll be able to tell you that my daughter's graduated from medical school. She's been
I remember her when she stepped in. I think she was still in high school
elementary school or maybe
and
high school. Yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah,
was quite a
school.
while ago. And
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
so glad to hear that.
That's why I'm giving you the update, because it's been a journey. We've been together a long time. So yeah.
Yes, yeah, there have been a couple of us, yes, for
That's
sure, and
wonderful.
that is wonderful. Oh, wow, that will be great.
I'm
Yeah,
sure
she's
it's
doing
great to
well.
hear.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you
Okay,
so
thanks.
much.
Happy
Okay.
Thanksgiving.
You too. Eat a lot.
Oh, yes.
Massachusetts office.
Okay,
Okay, that's right.
and you,
Let's see.
and yeah,
Sorry, I'm trying to end. Okay, here we go.
yeah, I never know where it is either. All right,
And they're collecting their money from fines, yeah. Well,
Well,
they're meant their fines and stuff that they're administering to other people, they're transferring that money.
Yeah.
Over for victim assistance.
yeah, it goes to victim
Yeah, yeah.
assistance.
So the
that
MA
money comes
office,
from where?
I imagine it's coming from court orders where people have their fines and pay.
Oh, I would have
I
thought
don't
it was
know.
coming from the federal government. That's interesting.
Well, this is man's office, victim.
Yeah, I think that's part of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so maybe Massachusetts is distributing it, but it's coming from.
The federal, yeah, yeah.
But no, victim, there are victims, they're collecting.
Yes, they are.
Some money from.
Yes,
Folks
yeah.
who
So
committed
where
crimes,
does that
where does
money
that
go?
money go?
Yeah,
I'd like to know.
maybe you're right.
I don't know.
But it
I don't
sounded
know.
like that's what she said, because she said it was from like white collar crime.
Crime, right.
That there is, so it is ends up being the victim assistance fund that they probably can apply to for.
Yeah, they.
I wonder if like Steve's concerned with the new administration coming in. Like, I wonder how much
I think everybody.
that is affecting, I know.
Department of Education.
One of my
is one.
sisters has adopted a baby from China
Gone?
That
and the
baby,
girl's now 17.
what he wants.
And my sister is re-adopting her because she's afraid
Yeah, they were talking about
that they will
that for a while.
consider her an
Oh,
alien,
yes.
an illegal alien.
Yes,
So
yeah,
my
so
sister's like
she's
redoing all
upgrading
the paperwork, she's
her
upgrading the
paperwork
adoption,
more
yeah.
or less, yes.
And it never occurred to me that she would be concerned, like, people would be concerned about
That, yeah,
children that have
yeah,
been adopted
yeah.
from foreign countries.
right, and then if you just think of the general attitude in places about
Oh, women's bodies,
women's bodies, you know. I
your
mean,
body, my choice.
Yeah,
that whole-
and then people, I mean, Mike Johnson just said that, you know, there's no transgender. You have to use the bathrooms in the Capitol that are you know, to your birth
Right.
gender.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is the United States, and this is what, I mean, the wasting the energy on it,
Well,
first
you know
of
why
all.
they're doing it?
Exactly.
Is there's a
Oh, it's
transgender
because of the woman,
representative.
yeah.
Well,
And
just
it's-
remember,
Yeah,
a
it has to go into the man's
the,
house.
the sad thing is, we
Can you
can't,
imagine what that would be like?
It's so unkind.
it's
Well, they want
so
everybody concerned about
Christian.
that and talking about that, instead of talking about why the very wealthy are not paying any taxes.
Right.
Right.
I mean, if we
No,
could focus
absolutely.
even just half this energy
I heard.
on looking at where all the money in the country
Mhm.
is.
Right.
Well,
I heard
yeah,
a
that's where they
frightening-
want all the money in the
Right.
country.
Yeah. I
So
heard
they're
a frightening
generating all this other stuff.
podcast today, and the guy was talking about how
Yeah.
in Nazi Germany, Hitler found the most incompetent people, but that were very loyal to him, to fill the top positions.
Oh,
So that they would just do what he said.
So many parallels.
Without,
Very-
without
really
question, and that that's what Trump has
Have to pay
doing.
attention.
Exactly what he's doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was terrified because that hadn't occurred to me.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was a comic book.
I got lost
Because
in
I'm
my
sure
ants
it wasn't-
listening. And I had some baby listen, give me the finger because I was, yeah, because I'm listening to it, and I'm like, oh my god.
Where am I?
So, yeah, so then I got lost, and this guy's like up my ass in his car giving me the finger and honking. I was like, excuse me, I'm listening to him. I didn't,
Wish you could listen to this.
I could not do that back, although I
Looking at a lot,
attempted.
good, look at a lot of this, a lot of this.
Because I thought you
They
wouldn't
have a
take
lot
it.
of
You would take it
special
down.
counsels on it there.
Yes.
And I
You
think
don't
that's
know.
probably where the
You
major,
don't.
their major cost is.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
but
is,
also
it does
here in
state
some
that in
states,
one of
you know,
these
that-
things, that it
yeah,
is, it is,
More information from that.
yeah,
that
it
they-
definitely is their biggest
It's just
expense,
for
is
telling
their
that
programs and
there's also a secret
services.
Well,
Yeah.
professional counseling,
come in.
if when they're providing the
Most of the
counseling,
time,
I get a stronger idea about where
And
they're
you shall
actually
not
providing counseling, how
transgender.
much counseling they're actually providing. But that's not really.
Who
supposed to
shall not
happen.
commit adultery.
I
unless-
think that it's potentially in various, you know, the shelter, but
Right.
also I think they have a center, but they also
I
have
know.
one in Provincetown, there is a
There's all
place
kind
in
of evidence.
Orleans.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that in Orleans,
Today,
there could be a counselor there, so you could walk in and talk to somebody there. And then there's another, you know, there are in different places, so they have other spots.
Yeah.
I would think
And-
the chat line, the team chat line. would
Interesting, yeah,
actually
we could just.
I mean,
Could be
well, any
somebody
24
who would
Right,
be
who is qualified to,
qualified to answer
to
this
listen and
question.
such, but what a wonderful thing.
Oh, my God.
To have that, so that at 2 AM, when it's, you feel like you could sneak out and talk to somebody,
It's gonna
you
come.
could find somebody. I just feel like, or, you know,
It's,
it's
she's very. well-
realizing that
Which is another- which is-
this doesn't just go on from 9 to 5
You know,
years a day.
that was interesting, and I meant to bring it up, because we're nurses,
And then-
that she didn't talk about school nurse being involved at all. And I was gonna ask her, but she kept talking about the teachers. but
Yeah,
the
yeah,
teachers.
yeah, and but
Then I
there's
thought,
not nurses,
there are
okay, right.
nurses in that, like, they have to be involved.
No, yes, because she also didn't speak to, I mean,
I know
the
her.
administrator was an issue, but I know that having been a teacher would have
You
been
should do that.
as a reporter, which I had to do, I went to my administrator.
Hmm.
And, you know, that you then knew that then you imparted the information, and then, you know, it began to unfold from there, but, it was
The call, we have to call.
Like the Department of.
the yeah.
Protective Services.
Now,
Yeah.
Protective
and
Service.
File a 51A, I think
Yes,
that was the
yes,
name of
and
it.
I could have done it myself,
Yeah.
or tell this
Okay.
person, and, you know, I talked with her
Right.
because it was, she happened to be very close by, and I could, you know, say something to her, and, you know, we went through the various things. and
Yeah.
It ended up being a situation that was had to be dealt with.
Yeah.
But, because it's hard in a school situation for it's oftentimes the initial call could easily become from the teacher if you had something and you didn't want to impart it. But a counselor because this woman was also a counselor, can sometimes get through to the right person, and they have a regular contact there, because different people took care of different places, and
Right,
then they,
right, and I would think the school nurse would have that.
yeah, and they definitely did,
We had
because
a
they would,
friend once
could see something.
who was reported to Child Protective Services. He came in and his little girl was a very rambunctious little girl,
Mm.
and she was always falling off the
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
Breaking
Every
an arm
parent's
and breaking an
nightmare.
ankle and the whole thing, and he came into our hospital
Mm.
and in the ER, and I happened to be in my office, and he calls me, he says, you need to come help me. Oh, sure. And he said, they want to report me to Child Protective
Because
Services.
she had had so many broken bones.
And I
Yeah.
said, oh my gosh, and of course, I couldn't stop them.
No,
No,
no.
They had to do what they had to
they do, and it's to his benefit in the long run, but it's horrible to go
Horrible.
through it.
He said they
I had a
came
friend who had to
into
go
their
through.
house
Yeah.
and interviewed all his children. He said it was just so frightening. Because, you know, kids could say, oh yeah, dad pushes me down the stairs all the time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, you know, dad
Yeah.
does push you down the stairs,
Yeah.
but he's wrestling with you, you
Yeah,
know?
right.
All right, so I do.
Are we
wanna
having a
say-
meeting next week?
No.
No.
And this is all, this is closed.
In harmony.
The town
Very
hall
nice.
closes at noon time on Wednesday anyway, so next week we are not meeting. We are meeting on December 4th, and Jackie, Beebe will be in the beginning of the meeting.
Right, right.
And she's going to talk to us about some things that are going on with the town, so some of, you know,
Is it okay if I'm rude and ask her for more money? Why do we don't
Yeah, she's
not
coming
get
to
it?
tell us why
oh,
we
you
should.
know,
Go ahead.
yeah.
I don't want to be rude, but I'll probably do that. I'll just
Yeah.
say, why don't we get more money?
Go
Why don't
ahead,
we
because
level
I have
funding?
to, but you know, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sure you do. but-
And, then we have,
Maybe we can give her some information about, you know.
oh, Children's Place
Yeah.
after that, so I'll be sending that out to,
50%, okay.
Children's.
Will they be the only ones?
the only agency in the next one on
Okay.
December 4th is Children's Place, after we have Jackie. And she had said, you know, 20 minutes, but it might be longer if we have questions and such, so I'm not exactly sure what kinds of things we'll be talking about too, but I think it's a little bit, and potentially some reorganization in some of the town things, so that, you know, maybe we'll be getting more money, I don't know.
Yeah, you're a attorney.
Maybe we can give her some information about the other towns.
Yes, yeah. Well, they do all meet
Probably will.
together and
Yeah,
stuff,
that's
so,
right.
and we have our own set of limits as to what we have to, you know, they're
I
trying
know, I think
to.
they work very hard.
Yes,
I
they do.
I
They
think this
do.
town
Um,
Employees work very hard.
Okay, and then the other thing, so December 11th, and I'm thinking that we would have two agencies on December 11th. Lower Cape Outreach, and I'm not sure which other one. Then we have only 4 left to interview. So I am thinking that we wouldn't meet on the 18th, because even for the agencies, that's gonna be,
Close to Christmas.
it's just, you know, it's a week away. You know, let's be nice to them. And so then our next meeting in January is January 8th, because the first, it's all Wednesday, they're all Wednesdays. So then we, you know, we could do 2 meetings, 2 agencies, and be
Yeah.
done with interviewing and then get
At
to
the
our
end of the day, right?
deliberation. So, you know, things can, you know, go by. So, we'll do 3 more before Christmas, 1 on the 4th and 2 on the 11th.
I know I may not be here on the 11th, but I can probably zoom it.
Okay,
That's okay.
yeah, and it's Lower Cape Outreach, and I was thinking of housing assistance,
Who's on December 4th again?
Children's Place. Which will be that's a fun one too.
Did the lady, remember last year, the lady with the mittens?
With the,
Remember her?
with the
Was
what?
she Mass Appeal?
With the Met, with the.
Mitts?
Yes,
Oh,
that was
yeah,
Mass Appeal.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that
yeah,
will be in January
Oh,
again,
okay.
yes.
Do you need mittens?
you should be met with that,
I know, but I couldn't-
because
I
of your
remember so many.
contribution. Yeah. She was so
Yes.
cute.
Oh, she's a great, talk about, you know, and that's when I think of the
So
application.
grateful
To be working there.
Yeah.
Can I tell them what you did? I went into Bass Appeal one day and I brought in, she had asked for mittens and hats. And I went through stuff and I cleaned them up and I brought them down and my husband helped me bring stuff in. And we met her and she had just been in the week before. And I said, I brought you some mittens and things. And she goes, you wanna see something? Look at this, brand new mittens. Somebody sent us 100 mittens and hats from Amazon. I said, oh, that's so I'm telling this one, you should have seen how happy this lady was, because well, I did that. Yeah, what a beautiful thing, what a beautiful thing.
All right, I will entertain
A motion to adjourn.
About adjournment.
Second.
And seconded,
There we go.
okay, we're all in favor?
Say aye.
Yeah, yeah.